The lack of friends is not always the curse that society makes it out to be. In truth, it is often the greatest test of one's character, the sharpening stone of the soul, and the arena where one discovers whether their happiness rests upon external approval or upon the unshakable fortress within. People are trained from youth to believe that their worth depends on how many companions surround them, how many hands they can shake, or how many voices can be gathered in their support. But Stoicism teaches otherwise. To a Stoic, the lack of friends is not a verdict of failure but an opportunity to learn independence of mind and freedom of spirit. It is in solitude that the individual discovers whether they are a slave to the crowd or a master of themselves. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." The absence of friends, then, is not a tragedy, but the gateway to such a retreat, a chance to cultivate self-respect so strong that no abandonment can wound it. For the one who walks alone but carries wisdom, solitude is not emptiness but fullness, not isolation but intimacy with the eternal truths that endure beyond fleeting companionships. Yet let us not confuse Stoic independence with coldness or disdain for human connection. The Stoic does not despise friendship, in fact, he treasures it. But he treasures it differently. He does not cling to friends as though life depends on their presence. He does not fear their absence as though it strips life of meaning. Rather, he accepts their arrival as a gift and their departure as fate. Epictetus warned against fastening our hearts to what is not within our control. Friends may walk beside us, but they may also leave, betray, or perish. If our peace depends on their constant nearness, then our peace is fragile, exposed to every wind of change. But if we root our peace in virtue, in the cultivation of wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline, then friends become a joy when present, yet their absence does not shatter the soul. The lack of friends, then, becomes a test: are we living as self-sufficient beings, or are we merely drifting leaves, blown whichever way the company of others carries us? To live by Stoic lessons is to know that true companionship begins with oneself, and the deepest friend you must not betray is your own reason and your own integrity. When a person finds themselves lacking friends, the ordinary mind begins to panic. What is wrong with me? Why am I abandoned? Why am I unwanted? This is the chorus of insecurity that drowns out reason. But the Stoic mind responds differently. It does not immediately accuse itself, nor does it rush to chase acceptance at the cost of dignity. It asks instead, what is within my control, and what is not? The judgment of others is beyond my command. The moods, preferences, and loyalties of friends cannot be chained by my will. But my character, my choices, my values, these are mine. If I have acted unjustly, let me correct myself. If I have spoken rashly, let me learn restraint. But if the absence of friends comes not from vice but from fate, then let me endure it with strength. Seneca wrote that the wise man is content with himself, but not because he rejects others, rather, because he knows he carries within himself all that is required to live nobly. This truth transforms loneliness from a prison into a classroom. Every quiet evening, every unshared triumph, every silent struggle becomes a lesson in resilience, teaching the soul that its worth is not dependent on applause or companionship but on its alignment with virtue. Society has conditioned us to measure life's value in networks, circles, and followings. We are told that popularity is power, that to lack friends is to lack identity. But the Stoic challenges this illusion with the sharp sword of reason. What is the worth of 1,000 companions if none sharpen your mind, none strengthen your spirit, none walk in virtue with you? Better one true friend of character than a crowd of flatterers. And better solitude with self-respect than company with corruption. The lack of friends does not mean you are broken, it may mean you are unwilling to trade your principles for cheap approval. It may mean you walk a path too steep for the many, a path reserved for those who value truth above popularity. Recall that Socrates, surrounded by students, was often abandoned by the masses. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, stood alone in thought though he commanded legions. Greatness often stands in solitude, because virtue is a mountain not crowded at its summit. If you find yourself without friends, ask not first what you have lost, but what you may be gaining: clarity, strength, and the uncorrupted voice of your own conscience. The lack of friends is not merely an absence, it is a revelation. It strips away the noise of social validation and forces us to confront the raw truth of who we are without the applause of others. When there is no one to echo our thoughts, we discover whether those thoughts can stand on their own. When there is no one to celebrate our victories, we find out if the victory itself is enough. This is why Stoicism insists on the cultivation of inner approval rather than outward recognition. Epictetus taught that the true measure of a man is how he conducts himself when stripped of all external supports. Do you collapse when no one is there to hold you up, or do you rise on the strength of your own principles? Friends may inspire us, but they cannot substitute for our inner compass. Their absence, uncomfortable though it may feel, acts as a trial by fire, a test that burns away dependence and leaves only what is durable. If virtue is in you, the lack of friends cannot extinguish it; if virtue is not in you, no abundance of friends can supply it. Thus, the solitary path becomes a crucible for the making of character, a quiet stage where the drama of the soul unfolds without an audience. But let us be honest, the human heart longs for connection. We are social beings, designed to share burdens, joys, and sorrows. To acknowledge this is not weakness but truth. Even the Stoics, while preaching self-sufficiency, spoke warmly of friendship as a treasure of life. Yet they warned never to let the treasure enslave the owner. The pain of lacking friends often springs not from solitude itself but from the story we tell ourselves about solitude, that it means we are unwanted, unworthy, or forgotten. This story is false. For a Stoic, the lack of friends means only this: that life is presenting you with the challenge of self-completion. Instead of seeing absence as rejection, see it as an invitation to strengthen the bonds within, between your reason, your values, and your actions. When you live in harmony with these, you carry within yourself a silent companionship more steadfast than any mortal friend. Then, if fate grants you companions, you welcome them with gratitude. If it denies them, you endure with calmness. In both cases, you remain free. True freedom, after all, is not the liberty to surround yourself with people, but the power to remain whole without them. Consider the example of Marcus Aurelius, burdened with the heaviest crown in the world. He commanded legions, ruled an empire, and yet confided in his journal rather than in countless companions. Surrounded by flatterers, spies, and rivals, he found his truest friend in philosophy. His meditations were not written for others, but for himself, as reminders of how to live nobly in the face of isolation. The lack of trustworthy friends did not weaken. From his solitude emerged words that have guided humanity for centuries. What does this teach us? That the absence of friends does not equal the absence of influence or purpose. Sometimes solitude allows the voice of reason to speak louder than the noise of company. Sometimes the greatest works of the soul are born not in banquets and feasts but in quiet rooms where one wrestles with thought. Thus, the lack of friends means that you have been given the stage of silence, a stage on which you may confront your fears, polish your mind, and emerge with wisdom that can outlast generations. Yet beware of swinging to the opposite extreme, for the Stoic path is balance, not denial. To claim, "I need no one, I want no one, I care for no one," is not strength but arrogance disguised as independence. The Stoic embraces friendship when it comes, but he embraces it as one who holds a flower, gently, knowing it may wither. He does not chain it, he does not demand it bloom forever. Thus, if you lack friends today, do not harden your heart into disdain. Keep it open, but keep it free. Seek companionship not to fill an emptiness but to share an abundance. When you build yourself strong in solitude, you no longer crave friends out of desperation, you invite them out of generosity. You can walk alone, yes, but if another soul joins you on the path, you welcome them with grace. If they leave, you bless them with peace. For friendship, like all external things, is governed by fate. To rage against its absence is folly. To accept it as part of life's rhythm is wisdom. The lack of friends, then, is not the end of your story, but a chapter meant to teach you that no friendship is greater than the one between your soul and virtue itself. The lack of friends often reveals more about the world than about the one who stands alone. Many pursue friendships not for virtue but for advantage, companionship traded like coin for entertainment, status, or security. When you refuse to play this marketplace of shallow bonds, you may find yourself standing apart, misunderstood, or even avoided. Yet this separation is not loss but liberation. Seneca wrote that it is better to be hated for who you are than loved for who you are not. In the absence of friends, you are freed from the temptation to wear masks, freed from the exhausting performance of pretending for approval. What remains is authenticity, the raw, unpolished, unapologetic truth of your being. And though society may sneer at solitude, the Stoic knows that solitude is not empty space but sacred ground, where one can walk without deception. The lack of friends means you are no longer defined by the shifting mirrors of others' opinions, but by the steady flame of your own virtue. If the crowd abandons you because you refuse to betray your values, then let their absence be your badge of honor, for you have chosen truth over flattery, principle over popularity. But solitude is not only defense, it is also creation. Without the constant chatter of companions, the mind has room to breathe, to stretch, to wander into depths unseen. Some of the greatest discoveries, philosophies, and works of art were forged not in company but in quiet. Alone, the thinker converses with eternity, alone, the soul asks questions too deep for idle talk. To lack friends is to gain the rare gift of uninterrupted dialogue with your higher self. Marcus Aurelius, though burdened with court politics, carved time to retreat inward and commune with reason. Epictetus, born a slave, lived much of his life with few companions, yet his solitude birthed teachings that transformed lives for centuries. What does this reveal? That the lack of friends is not a void but a canvas, one on which you may paint wisdom, discipline, and strength. Where the crowd seeks distraction, the solitary Stoic seeks transformation. And though the absence of friends may sting the heart, it can sharpen the mind and temper the will, forging a person capable of walking through fire unbroken. Still, loneliness is a formidable foe, one that creeps silently in the night and whispers lies to the soul. It says, "You are forgotten. You are unloved. You are nothing without others." The Stoic does not deny these whispers but confronts them with reason. What is love, if it is merely the fleeting affection of those who may change tomorrow? What is worth, if it depends on the shifting moods of friends? True love, true worth, must come from something eternal, virtue, wisdom, alignment with nature. The Stoic learns to respond, "I may lack friends, but I do not lack myself. I may be unseen by men, but I am not unseen by truth. I may walk alone, but I walk with reason as my companion." This defiance turns loneliness into solitude, weakness into strength. And when the night grows heavy, when the silence feels unbearable, the Stoic remembers that life itself is a fleeting passage. Every separation is temporary, every absence a lesson. Thus, even the ache of solitude becomes part of the great training, shaping the soul into one that can endure the harshest storms without breaking. The lack of friends also teaches, he does not demand it as entitlement but cherishes it as fortune. If friends come, he welcomes them with a full heart, not because he needs them to complete him, but because he enjoys the harmony of walking with another soul. If they leave, he does not crumble, for he has already learned to walk alone. Thus, the lack of friends becomes a teacher of perspective, stripping away entitlement and leaving behind reverence. To live without friends is not to live without joy, it is to discover that joy must first arise within, so that when companionship arrives, it is received not with dependence but with freedom, not with greed but with grace. The lack of friends, when embraced with wisdom, becomes a forge for resilience. To walk alone is to discover how much weight your spirit can carry without the props of others. It is in solitude that you learn discipline, not because someone watches you, but because you refuse to betray yourself. It is in solitude that courage is tested, not in the cheers of a crowd, but in the quiet where no one will ever know if you give up. This is why the Stoics did not fear standing apart. They knew that the strongest steel is tempered in fire, and the fire of solitude purifies the soul. A person who has endured the lack of friends without bitterness becomes unshakable when friends arrive. They no longer cling, no longer demand, no longer fear abandonment. They love freely because they have already learned to live freely. They are like a tree whose roots run deep, storms may strip its branches, yet it still stands, nourished from within. Such a person becomes a friend worth having, for they do not seek to use others as crutches, they seek only to walk side by side in virtue. And so, the lack of friends does not mean failure. It means training. It means that fate has chosen you for a path of refinement, a path that requires strength others may never know. Do not curse the absence of companions, for it is often the soil in which greatness grows. Consider the philosophers, the writers, the leaders who stood in silence and emerged with voices that still echo through centuries. Their solitude was not weakness, it was preparation. The Stoic does not resist the course of nature but flows with it, and if nature decrees a season of solitude, then it must hold hidden gifts. In those seasons, you are called to cultivate patience, to polish your character, to become the kind of person who is at peace with themselves. And when friends eventually arrive, they will not find you desperate for their presence but radiant in your completeness. You will not cling to them out of fear of being alone, you will walk with them in freedom, because you have already mastered the art of standing alone. That is the essence of Stoic friendship, not dependence, but harmony, not need, but shared virtue. Let us end with a truth that Stoicism whispers to every soul who feels abandoned: you are never truly without company. For within you dwells reason, the fragment of divine order that links you to all of nature. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that every human being is a citizen of the same cosmos, a limb of the same great body. When you walk alone, you still walk among stars, among trees, among the silent presence of eternity. To lack human friends is not to lack fellowship with existence itself. Every sunrise greets you. Every breath of wind speaks to you. Every challenge is a companion that shapes you. The Stoic does not shrink in loneliness, for he knows he is part of something vast, eternal, and interconnected. And when he finally meets another soul walking the same path, the bond is not born from desperation but from recognition, like two travelers who meet by chance yet know they belong to the same journey. Such friendship is not fragile, for it is rooted in virtue, and virtue is eternal. So, if you find yourself today without friends, do not despair. Do not measure your worth by the crowd's presence or absence. Instead, remember what Stoicism teaches: the lack of friends means that fate is giving you space to grow strong, to practice independence, to master yourself. It means you are being asked to walk the harder road, the road where applause is absent but true strength is born. And when friends come, welcome them with joy, but never let them chain your happiness. And when they leave, let them go without bitterness, for nothing essential can ever be taken from you. Your virtue remains. Your reason remains. Your place in the great order of life remains. The lack of friends is not a curse, it is a summons. A summons to rise above dependence, to transform solitude into strength, and to discover the unbreakable truth that the greatest companion you will ever have is the one within, your soul, aligned with virtue, walking unshaken through the shifting tides of life. If these words have awakened something within you, if they have reminded you that even in solitude, your soul holds the strength of an empire, then do not let this moment pass in silence. Join this brotherhood of seekers, this fellowship of those who walk the Stoic path. Subscribe now, because every lesson you gain here is another weapon against weakness, another shield against despair, another step toward the unshakable life you were born to live. Like this video if its truth has touched you, for in doing so you spread the flame of wisdom to others still wandering in darkness. And share it, not for vanity, but because someone out there right now is breaking under the weight of loneliness, and your act could be the voice that saves them. Do not wait. Do not hesitate. Stand with us, walk with us, become unstoppable with us.